What's up, hobby friends, and welcome back to Paint Bravely, the podcast where you can find a little bit of encouragement, discover new ways to make your hobby more fun, and most importantly, learn to paint bravely. Or as in today's episode, maybe we'll find out that you don't learn to paint bravely. I don't know. But that's going to be something we're going to talk about a little later on. Before we get to that, why don't we toss it over to Brent and just see what you've been up to last few weeks. Yeah.
Well, I'm going to talk about this gnome again, Casey. I've got this gnome I've been working on.
It's not Dark Eldar, so I think we're in the green.
No, I got those all to the same step, and then I put them back in my little cake pan, put them away for a little while. Mm-hmm. You guys don't need to be hearing about Dark Eldar. I don't need to be talking about it. I don't need to be painting them. We'll just put those away for a little while.
That's a good idea.
I think it's better for everybody if I'm painting gnomes. I'm excited about gnomes. I got a lot of color on there. Okay, so I've got this one figure. It's a relic blade gnome. He's a metal model. He is a gnome riding a fox, and he's got a wooden spoon, and he's flinging potions at people. We've been over this. We've talked about this.
Yeah, I love it.
We're all on board. Now, the thing is, with this model, a lot of choices. You got to pick the color of the fox. I went for a standard kind of orangey yellow fox. Cool. You got to pick the color of the potions. Now, the rules for Relic Blade, they got red poppers, they got green poppers. So I'm going mostly red and green for the popper color, the potion color.
I didn't know that.
Okay.
Mine are
Oh,
blue?
were you painting them different? Well, see, blue. I read my rule card because Relic Blade is a game that I actually read some of the rules for. We've been over this too. Now, where we're leading up to is we've got one major color block on this gnome that has not been decided. It's the hat. It's the pointy gnome cap, the garden gnome hat. And I was having a conundrum. We've got orange on the model, we've got greens, we've got reds. What color is this hat going to be?
I mean, I feel like you got two options, right?
Uh-huh.
You got blue, blue and orange, right? And you got purple. Now, personally, I would be leaning towards maybe a purple because you've got some red in there too. You know what I mean? So, like, that would make some sense. Like going with a purple hat with the orange fox and the red potion.
I think that's a fine choice. Purple would have been a fine choice. I went with blue. See, I went with blue.
I think that's an acceptable choice as well.
I went with blue, and then I immediately started to second guess myself. I was like, oh, no, it's the only blue thing on this model. I mean, I gave him some blue jeans, like some gnome blue jeans, but then, like, still, it wasn't looking quite right.
Yeah.
And I took to Instagram. Well, first I took to PowerPoint. I took to PowerPoint and I drew a little triangle over the picture of the gnome.
Yeah.
And like changed the color of his hat. And so on Instagram, you can put up to 10 pictures in one little, not story, whatever, Instagram post. So I posted just the vanilla picture of my almost painted gnome with his blue hat. And then I posted 9 variants with different color hats.
Okay.
As like, let's crowdsource this. Let me know what I should go with. And these people are not helpful because everybody picked a different color. Some people picked colors which were not even an option. Yeah. I don't know what I was expecting. I figured there was a chance that there would just be this massive consensus around, oh, you got to go green. Yeah, you got to go green. But no, it was, people were picking everything. Some people liked blue, some people liked purple. But there were people talking about reds and greens and orange and like different blues. Teal definitely came up. I don't know if that was a joke. Actually, it would have been pretty good. But
actually, now that you say it, right? Yeah. The thing about the internet, though, right, in a nutshell, is it's chaotic at like best. Right. So yeah, you're gonna get all the options that you didn't show. Like you're just, is it red or blue? They're like, how about green? Like that's not what I asked.
No, I gave him 10 different options, and then plus the rest of the rainbow for people just to fill in.
Yeah.
So anyway, the internet is not always helpful, but we're getting to a semi-serious point here about picking colors.
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes you really get stuck on a dilemma, and especially if it's an important color choice. And for a gnome, the hat is a very important color choice because it is normally a bright color. It is a big solid color normally. Mm-hmm. It's like on the extremity of the model being the size of their whole body, but sticking off of the top of their head.
Yeah.
So it's an important color. It's an important choice. And anyway, these unhelpful people of the internet were not helping me out very much, or they were all helping me a lot in completely different directions, which amounts to kind of the same thing.
Just chaos, yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, I get frustrated with all these people on the internet, and I just don't touch it for a while.
Uh-huh.
And I come back to it a week later, and it looks right. He has a blue hat. I've said nothing about whether this is a stylish gnome. He's just a blue hat gnome.
Yeah.
Like, we all wear things we shouldn't wear. I wear Crocs every day of my life. Should I do that? Arguable, but I do. That's part of who I am. And you shake your head at me.
I mean, Crocs is an identity thing versus a gnome hat. Like, come on now. I don't think there's a comparison.
I think I'm coming to a real point here. I think I'm getting to a nugget.
Yeah.
After a while, the color you paint something is the color it's supposed to be.
That's true.
That becomes fused with the character that becomes a part of what it is.
Yeah.
He has a blue hat. He's been wearing that blue hat for a week or two now. He's not about to change it now. That's his hat. That's his hat. That's what he's got.
It doesn't match, but you know what? He's okay. He's okay with it. This is an exercise in exposure therapy is what this is. You've seen the model every day for a week, and you're just that's feeling more okay every day.
Habituation, desensitization,
exactly.
All these things.
But, well, it seems fine.
Seems fine. And that's where I'm at. So this gnome is almost done. I'm going to finish up a couple little details, but this is a story of acceptance and denial, anger, bargaining. You eventually end up, you keep the blue hat. And here we go. So,
I mean, I think blue is a good option. Like blue and orange. Aren't they directly across each other?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's literally the complementary color for orange. So you kind of can't go wrong with something like that. I mean, you obviously can, but for a gnome, bright orange fox, it makes perfect sense. Yeah. I have not the same gnome. I don't have the fox gnome, but I have my gnome from Relic Blade, and he's got a lovely blue hat. Now, I did do some shading in the front and got that nice white highlight down the side. So, it's not it's not a fancy hat, but it's not your average hat either. But it is blue.
Some non-metallic metal on that blue hat. Is that what you're trying to tell me?
I suppose you could say that. Non-metallic cloth color. Yeah, there's a nice little blended highlight in the front. So
really catching the light, huh?
Yeah. He's kind of he's sitting down. He's got one hand on the knee, and he's kind of looking, and it's all lit from that angle. It makes sense. Yeah, blue is good.
Cool beans.
Even the cats like it. It's perfect.
Yeah, Snuffles is going a little bit nuts right now. So in the last hour, I figured out that there's definitely a rodent in between the roof and the drywall here. And apparently the inside spaces in this room, it's really made some progress from one side of the room to the other.
You can hear it scratching along. Man, what's funny is I've in my closet where I used to film all my videos, and now it's just an editing room. Outside it, above my closet, there's actually a bird's nest, and it's been there for a while. It's in this crevice under kind of this roof part, and every so often I hear them in there, and it freaks me out, man, because I'm oh man, there's something in here, and then it's oh no, it's a bunch of birds out of nowhere. But yeah, that scratching in the walls noise, that'll get you. You have to do something. Cut a little, half circle out of the bottom. Put some cheese out.
Okay, we can do this story. The last apartment I was in,
okay,
like, kind of had the same thing. These cats just started, like, looking at the walls, and then, like, both cats were, like, tracing their way around the apartment.
Evil spirits.
And eventually, like, the noise was coming from a place in the wall that had a vent bolted into it or screwed into the wall. Mm-hmm. So, like, all right, I, put on a long sleeve shirt, put on my work gloves, and undid the screws, undid 4 screws to take off the vent, and a flying squirrel.
Oh, no.
It was a flying squirrel. It didn't start flying immediately, but it, like, walked out, started drinking the cat's water, like, from the water bowl, and then... and then I looked in the hole, and this was the bad part. There were, like, 8 skeletons of other rodents. Like,
they couldn't get out.
Had somehow, like, fallen in that particular, behind those posts, those studs in the drywall. I just couldn't get out from that particular trap. But, which makes me wonder about, every place I've lived in since then, I guess.
Just how many skeletons?
It's just between every stud. I don't know. Maybe if you have done renovations as one of your jobs in life, let me know if between every stud in every building is just skeletons. 8 rodent carcasses.
Man, what a bummer.
Yeah.
Did you at least let this one go? You're like, I think you deserve it.
I spent the next 2 hours chasing it around with, like, Tupperware.
Sure.
And I could not catch it. And then... So 2 hours me trying to catch it with Tupperware. And then in hour 3, I let the cats help. Like, maybe they can help me corner it or tire it out or something. And... I
mean, they're declawed in the front, right? So...
No, they both have claws. They both have,
okay.
like...
I don't know, I just assumed they would be.
I was taking risks. I'd been chasing this thing around my room for 2 hours. I was taking risks at this point. And anyway, then this squirrel just disappears. Like, it was there. We kept almost cornering it, and then I'd miss with the Tupperware, or it would just, like, jump over me. Like, this thing was going nuts. Oh, because it is a flying squirrel. Like, it was...
yeah, it's agile. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. This room also had stupid construction with aluminum posts in it for no good reason, and so it was, like, going up around the room and everything. And anyway, it just disappears. I'm like, whoa, where'd the squirrel go? Spend another hour, like hour 4, like, where'd the squirrel go? Yeah. Where is the squirrel?
It's in your bed.
And it disappeared. I found it weeks later, dead inside my desk, but that's a whole different thing. Casey, why don't you tell me about your new Imperial Guard charcuterie?
Yeah, charcuterie. So it turns out, since Brent is actually walking away from the camera, that he didn't know that charcuterie was a real word. So why don't you just make fun of him for that? That's funny. So anyways, I posted a video about basically painting an Astra Militarum army last week, something like that. I've never painted any Imperial Guard, any Acadians, any whatever, and I had some opinions about them, and that was fine. That was all fine. What I didn't realize is that during the entirety of the video, I had turned the turret of the tank backwards. And I cannot tell you, like, I've gotten more comments about how much heresy it is to have the turret of the tank on backwards than any other comment I've ever gotten ever. And then I posted a community post of me, like, turning it back around and going, there, I fixed it, But it's been a week, let me tell you. It has been a week of, like, answering comments and trying to be like, look, man, it was an accident. I did not mean it. But, like, people took it, like, very seriously. Like, a lot of people thought I was doing it on purpose to make fun of them, which I wasn't.
I could see it though. I would believe that as a possibility.
Yeah, I could see it. But the thing is, like, if you look at a Leman Russ tank from the Astra Militarum in Warhammer 40k, legitimately, the turret looks like it's on the wrong way already. And if you turn it around, it looks like a real tank. People didn't buy that though. They didn't think that was funny.
Yeah, those people mentioned the exhaust pipes that are clearly in the rear of the tank.
Now, see, here's the thing. Okay, here's the thing. While I was painting this tank, I was thinking, man, it's a little strange that there's exhaust in the front of the tank, right? Because that seems weird. But then I was thinking about this movie that I used to watch a lot. I haven't seen it in a while, actually, called Kelly's Heroes. Have you seen this movie?
I've heard of it.
Okay. It's Clint Eastwood, Donald Sutherland, a bunch of other awesome actors, right? It's essentially these people who like find out there's like Nazi gold somewhere, and it's like a big gold hunt, but they're all like World War II, and they have to like leave and go do this whole mission to try and find this gold and steal it from the Nazis. And their plan is to like get rich and then come back home from the war, right? Very funny movie. Also a pretty good like World War II movie. So just throwing that out there as a recommendation. But there's this whole thing where Donald Sutherland is talking about like Tiger tanks versus like the US tanks, and how, oh man, like, the only way to get around one of these tanks is to like shoot it right up in the ass, right? We got to get around it and just fucking shoot it. And I'm thinking like, okay, well, maybe the Cadians didn't want to put their engine in the back because that seems like a weird thing. I don't know why this is going through my head, but this is seriously going through my head. And then I just didn't look into it further. I was just like, that's just the way it is. Didn't think about it.
Now, I'll give you that I think, I'm not a military historian, but I think many tanks have 360 degrees turret operation.
Yes,
or that at least is a possibility.
This plastic turret does swivel. Completely in circles, and it even comes off the tank. I can just take it off because it's plastic.
Yeah.
It's made of plastic. It's not a real tank.
And I'm also going to give you that it grew on me. It does look cool.
It looks
grew
cool.
On me. Yeah.
It does. It legitimately does. So, okay. Then I'm gonna hold up the tank to the camera. We do record this podcast for YouTube, so youtube.com/paintbravely the podcast if you want to check out the video, watch, listen. It's not much different, but shenanigans, office eye rolls to the camera, that kind of thing. It's always fun.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna hold up the tank.
Imagine the profile of this tank. The treads are like a rhombus. So the top of the treads are kind of offset from the bottom of the treads. The shape of the treads is a rhombus, and the correct way is that the top point of the rhombus is leading, and Casey has it so that like the bottom point of the rhombus is leading. Yeah,
so what I'm holding up is the correct position of the tank, where it's actually dangling off the top portion of that rhombus. It doesn't really make sense. Like I feel like that would be weirdly like top heavy and it would flip forward. But you turn it around and all of a sudden like the center of gravity makes more sense, and you have like, I don't know, it just looks cooler. It's like it has this nice curve down with the tread, and it just makes sense. And like, there are guns pointed out the other direction. I'm thinking like, cool, that's to like cover their 6. No big deal. Makes perfect sense to me. But obviously, I was wrong, and I apologize.
I did think it was funny that you made a YouTube community post just to apologize, to try to head that off at the curve.
What's even better is there's almost like, I think there's like 3/4 of the amount of comments that I got on the YouTube video in that post going, oh, thank God. Oh, I was almost dying. It's so good. So that's been my week, but I did paint a boatload of Cadians, and they were fun to paint. Not a huge fan of them. Like I think they feel like kind of generic. Like they're just, soldiers, pretty standard. I think they have their place, but again, I don't know. It's not like I'm trying to hurt anybody's feelings. I'm just not a huge fan. I also painted everything all rusty, and apparently that's no good too. Can't do that.
Yes, you did.
Yeah, so my answer was, these are my toy soldiers. These are mine. There are many like them, but these are mine.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
So, yeah, that's the whole tank debacle. The whole situation went down this week. Video's doing good, though, so, it all works out.
There you go, that charcuterie.
Yeah, charcuterie.
A little sample pack of that army. Very nice. Yep. Very nice.
You been painting anything else this week? You been doing anything else, Brent?
Nah, nothing important.
Nothing important.
Look, we'll get back to it next time around. I'll tell you about my Dark Eldars again,
Right, that makes sense. Give it an episode before you bring that back up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's like a pool table situation all over again, but, it's going longer. Oh, man. Just got to wait a year and then bring it up and be like, I'm finally done.
It'll happen.
Yeah.
It's just going to sneak up on us. All right, Casey,
yeah.
you wanted to do an actual topic this time, so let's get into it. Lead us off.
I do usually want to, but what ends up happening is we just start BSing and then it's fun. So yeah, that's generally how that goes. But we actually have a pretty fun topic today. Like I said, maybe you won't learn anything from this podcast. Maybe that's it. The actual topic for the episode is, does watching YouTube miniature painters actually make you a better painter? That's a question that I think probably Brent and myself have to ask ourselves pretty often, because that's kind of what we're doing generally. So it's like, do our videos hold any weight? Do they actually teach people things? I'm going to let you start, Brent, because I know that our answers are different, I think.
Yeah, when you mentioned this topic, you're like, yeah, so the answer is no, right? I was like, well, that's not how I think about it, but okay, maybe we'll have something to talk about here.
Yeah.
So let me get into this approach. First off, if you are watching mini painting videos while you're painting minis, then they help you. Like if this is something for you to do that keeps you at your painting desk, then it helps. Yeah, anything that gets you at your painting desk is good. And so what we'll get into later is, are you watching videos instead of painting? That gets a little more dicey, I think.
Yeah.
And while we're talking about that, if you are listening to Paint Bravely the podcast, I mean, you should be multitasking. This should not be the only thing you're doing with this time. If you're like watching the video of this and taking notes or something, no.
Unless it's about tank turrets specifically, I think we got that. We nailed that one.
Right. While you're listening to Paint Bravely the podcast, you should either be, at the grocery store, kind of, getting your meal prep done, or you should be sitting there at your painting desk, maybe getting a little bit of hobby done. So, there. I just want to make sure people aren't wasting time only listening to Paint Bravely the podcast. I think people have learned by now, but
I mean,
we never mention it.
I think that's most podcasts, like pretty much.
Yes.
Like, I do feel like most podcasts, I'm gonna be doing something else. Like this is my time to like zone out while I'm doing the dishes or something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But painting specifically, yeah. That's
okay.
Yeah.
So if you have, a laptop or something there at your painting desk, and you just got a little loop going of a few mini painting channels, perfect. Cool. I don't think that necessarily helps, but if that is a small part of your ritual that gets you to sit down, good.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Casey, you wanted to say how mini painting YouTube videos don't help you learn how to paint, so why don't you get into that?
I think that's taking it maybe a little far. It's not
That's
like
what
a
you
hard.
said.
There was a but. There's a but in there. So I think that a majority of YouTube videos that try and teach you something, unless it's like something technical that is like mathematically 1-to-1 kind of thing, like it's more of an entertainment thing that inspires you to try the thing that they're talking about, right? So I can talk about glazing, I can show you how to do that, but if you're not really, I don't know, if you're not inspired to go out and try doing that, you're not going to learn or understand like how that actually works. Like you have to apply something to that, and it's going to take more than the first time you do it, right? So there's way more learning and there's way more trial and error in actually sitting down and trying something that you've seen on YouTube. Like for the most part, what we do is like edutainment, right? We're trying to keep it entertaining while trying to educate or inspire in that education. But you know, it's YouTube. Like we have to also make it fun. And a lot of the times what that does is when we actually get to the painting portion, and in my experience of just watching, you know, painting on YouTube, you don't see every brush stroke. You don't necessarily get the exact reason as to why something is happening, or like how that brush is acting with that paint at that consistency or whatever the case is. So I think that most of the videos that we watch, including the videos that I watch, are inspiring us to do something and to try something and to learn it, rather than actually teaching us to do it specifically. Now, I know there are some exceptions. I think there are painters that do 1-to-1 painting videos that are hours long. A lot of Patreon painters do that, but their whole goal is pure education, where there's feedback involved, right? That you're taking a photo, you're taking a video, you're sending it, you're getting a little bit of feedback from a teacher and actually learning something that way. Otherwise, if there isn't a lot of feedback, like you're not necessarily going to be learning as much as you think you are. And if you're not painting while you're watching the video too, then yeah, that is a pretty big detriment. If it's just, I'm watching this for entertainment, you know, and that doesn't take away from it. I think what we do is pretty fun and, you know, important for the hobby. I think it keeps people going, but I don't think it's purely a teaching tool. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I hear you. I definitely hear that point of view. And so I think we maybe need to define a few things here first. So some of the skill in painting minis is very much the hand-eye coordination, muscle memory, like a real tactile feel for what the brush should be doing, what the paint looks like on the brush, what kind of strokes you need to be taken, how to get those glazes and blends and all that stuff the way that you want. And there's a real hard cap on how much, you know, somebody in front of a video camera on the other side of the world can help you out with that. So much of that, you know, there's no substitute for experience on that stuff. You've got to put paint on the brush and smush it around and see how it goes.
Yeah, that's pretty much where I'm at with that. Exactly. You know, you have to put paint on your brush and you have to try those things out as much as possible, and you're not necessarily going to get it right. You're going to have to keep doing it, and you're going to have to learn like how, especially in your environment with your tools, with your brushes, whatever, how that's going to work. And it's just going to take time.
Yeah. You need to go through all the common mistakes yourself. You need to see for yourself why it's important to flush out your airbrush every 5 minutes. You need to
keep that tip clean. Yeah.
You need to see for yourself what happens when that tip gets not clean and stuff starts spritzing all over the place. Globules. Yeah.
Dry tip. That does bring up the kind of the other half of YouTube videos in general, or mini painting videos, is the actual practical tips, the hot tips, if you will, that do help you, which is, I mean, yeah, because they're straightforward, right? Like dry tip. Don't let your airbrush get dry tip. Yeah.
Right. And the learning process on that is twofold. One, you hear people say that all the time, and so it's sort of rattling around in your brain. And two, you experience the problem, and then, oh yeah. Right. Really a 1-2 there on figuring that one out.
But it's much quicker, right? Because you've now been exposed to it.
Yeah.
So like in that regard, yeah, I think it's pretty educational.
Yeah. So I am of the mind, I'm not trying to make a point here, but it's just the way I think of it. I think of a lot of this hobby as actually being the hot tips and the toolbox.
Okay.
And I don't have a ton of skill. I am proficient in some aspects of moving my paintbrush around, but I am not a highly skilled person in that realm. But I feel like I know a lot of strategies for approaching a lot of different problems. And so every time I get to part of a paint job, I have a couple of choices. I can make a choice that's pretty easy for my skill level, and it will probably give me a look I like. So an example I want to use here is red eyes. Casey, I'm painting a goblin, and I want to give him red eyes, maybe even glowing red eyes. How do I do it?
How would you do that? Well, I suppose you could take a teeny tiny brush and dot the eye with red.
Sure.
Or if it were me, I would probably paint the eye and a little bit around it white, and then drop in some like red thin down paint to make it glowy.
Nice. Okay, those were kind of two of the options I was thinking of there. But this is kind of the point I want to make.
It's like being tested.
Yeah. So that approach you mentioned second of paint the eyes white and then put a glaze or a red wash on top to make it like a bright red with some variation in it.
Yeah.
That's not hard. That's super easy.
Right,
As long as you have the control to be able to make the white dots in the first place. That's pretty easy. It's just do this, then do this. That is actually something that is very easy to communicate in a video.
Yeah, step 1, step 2. Right.
Yeah. It's a simple process. You can say it in a video. And since you can say it in a podcast and have it make sense.
That's a good
Paint
point.
the eye white, put a red wash on top. And then if there was a video accompanying that, you could see like, oh yeah, that does give a pretty cool effect. Yeah, there is almost a little bit of glow behind those eyes. And so the video helps in that way. And I think a lot of mini painting comes down to just hundreds of those little tidbits, those little nuggets of here's a way to approach this problem. Here is one solution to get me to where I think I want to go on this. And I think that YouTube videos can communicate all those little tips oftentimes pretty well.
Yeah.
Now, of course, it depends on the video if the tips that you get are the tips you clicked on the video for. As I've gone further and further along of painting and watching videos, it's like stupid random things that I'm like, oh yeah, that was pretty cool. And it can be almost anything. I'll just be like, oh, that's a cool color, or that's a cool tool, or oh, I like putting, this separation between those two areas, or whatever it is. And it's, I think of it as nuggets. That's the word I'm going to use, is nuggets. Little nuggets of like, oh, this is a cool trick, this is a cool idea, etc. Yeah.
I mean, I'm definitely on board with what you're saying. I think that makes a lot of sense, because you do kind of build a toolbox of like, not shortcuts, but like little techniques, right? And sure, some of the like more difficult things, you got glazing and wet blending and all these things that are more difficult techniques technically than painting something white and then washing it with red, but like it's all in your toolbox at some point, and you do learn those things. I think something that accompanies that pretty well. And something that I take away from most painting videos that I watch are like, oh, I used, this particular product to do this thing, right? So, okay, I'm looking at like an oil wash. Okay, that looks really cool. I want that effect on my models. Mm-hmm. So how do you make that? Okay, you buy an oil paint and you buy a mineral spirits. Okay, I have no idea where to go from there. But I'm going to experiment with that. And now that I know where I like things and how I like to use them, it's like I have an idea of how that works for me. But I got the idea from watching this video, so I bought those products. Something that I think is also a little bit more on the inspirational side that you put in your toolbox is when you see a technique that is a difficult thing to do, that does require something specific like an oil wash or maybe a brown enamel or something like that. What is possible with that product. And even if you can't achieve that right away, that the potential is there. So there's something to work towards. Yes. And that's I think where I land most of the time when I'm watching something. It's like I know that with this is achievable. And it's because of me, wherever I'm at, that I'm not able to get there yet. But if I keep practicing with that thing, with that tool, I'm going to get there.
Yeah. And sometimes that's a long path and requires a fair bit of skill to develop, and sometimes it's pretty quick. Like, I mean, an oil wash, there's a little bit of messing around to get the consistency right, but other than that, like it's kind of self-explanatory.
Yeah.
And or at least not that you're all going to end up at exactly the same place, but with an oil wash, there's a lot of right answers in terms of just throwing a wash at something. Maybe it's going to be more dirty or more clean than the way the YouTuber did it, but it's going to do something to the model, and most of the time it's beneficial and ends up with a look, Maybe it's not exactly the one you thought you were going for, but you'll definitely get a look out of it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I think that's really what I mean by potential, right? It's like you're going to get a look. It might not be the one that they got, but whatever they got is definitely possible. So it's about refinement, right? From there, you figure out that process by trial and error. Yep. So again, just being kind of inspirational, even in just the product choice. Yeah.
Right. And product choice is definitely something you can learn from YouTube videos. And I don't even know if the word inspirational is the one you want to use, but it is. You can kind of get a consensus of what are the tools and supplies that other people seem to be using, other people seem to be getting a lot of mileage out of.
Yeah.
And I don't like to think of myself as just someone who says buy this, and this, buy this, and this. But from time to time, I hope you are watching, be like, oh, dang, that Micron pen, that seems pretty cool. But
I mean, I did see that, and I was I was pretty impressed by the coverage of that Micron pen, honestly.
We'll see. I'm wondering if it's going to go dead after another foot of foot of use or something.
Of over acrylic paint, it's just getting clogged up or something.
It's just done. That's possible. I don't know.
Yeah, I could see that because I have heard that the whatever evaporates out of that ink cuts through acrylic, so I could see that actually affecting that at some point and getting clogged in that tip so that the ink isn't coming out of the felt anymore. Or whatever.
That makes sense. Yeah, I think it's alcohol based.
Right. Yeah. So it's possible. Yeah. Still, Micron pens. That's definitely a hot tip, a nugget, if you will.
That's a nugget
paint some
right
eyeballs. There. I didn't paint any of the eyeballs on these Cadians I painted, but you know what? If I had a Micron pen, I would.
Well, I'm going to tell you, I got some nuggets out of your video about those Imperial Guards. I'm going to tell you.
Yeah.
So if you were just browsing YouTube and like, oh, this guy put together some Imperial Guard wrong, let's click on this video, see what this is all about.
I should retitle it. Grown man builds tanks wrong. Warhammer 40K.
Right. So that video, just being honest, like maybe somebody clicked on it because they wanted to see what was going on with your particular paint job for that type of model.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe there were some people out there who's like, yeah, I've been thinking about painting some Army men's or some, KDM Imperial Guard in particular. Let's check this out. But I think the real value of that video came in just a couple of nuggets spread throughout it, which were in no way advertised in the title or in the thumbnail. So
that's the way I like it.
You used silly putty as a mask in that video.
Mm-hmm.
You painted camo by using a silly putty mask and then spraying the tank with the airbrush, and then you took away the silly putty mask and you sort of had a camo pattern on there. Cool.
It's very effective, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I don't do a lot of masking. I have some masking tape. I've a couple of times tried to use blue tack, but it's a little too aggressive.
Yeah, it might be.
So I would benefit from that nugget. I should get myself some silly putty. I know I should. Yeah.
Yeah, the silly putty masking thing is, man, I don't even remember who told me that. It was like 3 or 4 years ago. Somebody was just like, oh, you need to go buy this like silly putty. Because I think like some company had a version of that and they were selling it for way too much money. And they're like, look, it's putty for masking. It doesn't take the paint off. And someone else is like, yeah, that's just recolored silly putty. Like it's not different. It's like, oh. So yeah, my wife actually just bought me a pound of silly putty the other day.
That's a big egg.
It's a big one. It's a lot of putty. Because I kept taking my son silly putty. I kept going into his like toy box and be like, I need to borrow this for a little bit. Yeah. I mean, so yeah, if you have kids,
Daddy's painting Cadians.
Yeah. Sorry, son, Daddy's painting Cadians. I need to borrow your silly putty. Yeah. So yeah, my wife went out and bought me a whole pound of it. It was very nice.
Very nice. Very nice.
Yeah, but worth buying if you're airbrush, for sure.
Yeah. So I feel like a lot of the things that you can learn, like knowing that silly putty works, that is something that you have now learned, that's in your brain, that's never going anywhere, and that does give you more options when you're painting. It gives you a route to create cool camo patterns or to mask anything else that you want to mask off while you're especially doing, spray painting. And so yeah, that easily conveyed by a video and sort of picked up at random by a viewer. Somebody going into that video doesn't know, unless you specifically make a video about hot tips for making camo or things you can do with silly putty or why you need silly putty at your painting desk. Nobody knows that's what they're going to learn from that video, but
yeah, it's true.
We'll pick that up, file it away in the filing cabinet in the toolbox, and maybe pull it out sometime.
That's true. I think for the most part, those are the kinds of things that, again, you put in your toolbox. And if I'm watching a video and it's titled one thing or another, I'm not necessarily expecting anything else. And I personally try and title my videos like fairly generically. It's like in this video, I'm talking about the Astra Militarum and the two sides of this army. And yeah, I'm painting an entire Start Collecting box and some. But you don't need to know that. That's just the entertaining part of the video, so I can talk over it for 20 minutes. I don't know. I do like to slip in the nuggets, because it's like that's just the entertaining part of the painting portion, I guess, is a good way to put it. And I think a lot of mini-tubers do that. It's like, well, how do I make this sound less boring by just saying, and then I painted blue? Right?
Right. So part of it is you consciously doing new and interesting techniques to keep your viewers informed, interested, and engaged, learning something new.
Yeah.
But I'm sure part of it is as you are growing and learning as a painter, you're trying out new stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the things that you did in that video are going to be new to you or
to somebody.
And so will by definition be new to at least the audience that has learned everything they've ever known from you specifically on YouTube.
Which is that's a thing. I mean, look, if you've only ever watched like my channel or Brent's channel, you got to branch out. Like, there's more out there.
There is. You can learn a lot about using pale sand as a universal highlight from Dana Howell.
And Vince Venturella.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Vince also taught me about using light flesh tones as a universal highlight.
Pretty much.
Yeah. Take those clownfish highlights all the way up to to light Caucasian skin tone. Sure.
It's funny you say that. That is actually one of those nuggets that I picked up at some point, probably from Vince. And it's just been employed for pretty much forever now. Like, if I'm highlighting something, I'm using kind of an off-white that has some yellow in it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that almost always works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think Vince in particular has actually made videos that are on that exact topic.
Oh, he has, yeah.
But normally it's just you're watching Dana and like, oh, there she goes with that pale sand again.
Yeah,
well, it really is a useful color. You can use that on everything. You should use that on everything.
I mean, pretty much. Like, that's one of those things that you don't really think about when you start. You know, you're like, well, I want to make this lighter, so I'm going to mix it in white, right? It's like, no, that's like, it seems counterintuitive, but no.
Yeah.
Got to mix in that off-white with some yellow, because it keeps the saturation of your color much better than white.
So we think as a broader topic,
mm-hmm.
color choice and color combinations in general actually are something that you will learn about through YouTube.
That's true.
And I think most of the time this is very in the background osmosis, slowly sinking into your brain of colors that you like, combos that you like, things that you want to try. But every once in a while it will be very on the nose with pale sand, or sometimes you'll just be like, hey, orange armor is the best color for orcs. You know, I should have seen this sooner, but you know what? There's no denying it. Orange armor is the best color for orcs. And sometimes it's just right there, undeniable. Something clicks in your brain and you learn something from a YouTube video, you know?
Where did you learn that?
I don't know, Casey. I don't know.
It's just through osmosis somewhere. I painted an orc once with orange pants. It's actually one of my favorite orcs. Like, he's the only one with orange pants out of my entire, like, almost 3,000, 4,000 points of orcs. Just this one guy with orange pants. Sticks out from a mile away.
Yeah. No, in my case, one of my old videos, the deodorant speeder bike with the orcs all over it.
Mm-hmm.
I did orange for the big orc on that. I was like, oh yeah, this is the way to go. But hopefully I was able to show other people that fact through that video.
I mean,
and also locally, my friend Alex has been painting his orcs orange.
All right.
And he's right. I gotta hand it to him. He's right. He knows what he's doing.
Yeah. Well, I'll just throw this tidbit in there. If you are washing your orc skin with purple, orange is gonna look pretty good. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's also a thing you do is wash the green skin with purple, not brown or green. That's just a whole other thing.
There's a nugget for you.
Look, we're just like
wash that orc skin with purple.
All over the place.
You didn't think about that before, did you? Or some of you were typing, I knew to wash orc skin with purple, but I know. This is for everybody else.
Right.
This is for everybody else.
Don't worry about it. We know. We know. You're good. Don't worry about it.
We knew you knew to wash orc skin with purple.
Yeah.
And we knew you wash with red. We know you wash with green, and you wash with brown. We see you. We see you. We know you're there. But purple's the way to go. Purple, orange armor.
It's a good way to go.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. You go.
Okay. Also, I was just gonna say teal. That was really
teal. Teal is just a good color.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, honestly, like, actually, I didn't necessarily want to talk about. I'm going to now. I got like a pretty good head start after finishing my Cadians on the next thing that I'm working on. Videos come out like July 10th or something. And I actually finished it. So it's weird. It's like up on my Patreon already, which never happens. I literally have no idea how the time got there and what happened, but it's done. But it's mostly like teal workup on Tomb King's model, and it is lovely. It is wonderful.
Amazing.
Just throwing that out there. I had a very good
Incredible.
time.
All right, here's another one. Here's another one. I learned this from James Wapple.
Oh yeah.
I'm sure other people know this secret too, but James Wapple, he's the one that taught it to me, and for me it was a click moment, like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Gold. You start with gold, and then you put a little purple tint somewhere on there. You put a little green tint somewhere on there.
Yes.
Green, purple, gold. Whoa. That's the stuff.
Mm-hmm. Now, there's an actual name for that. I wish I could remember it off the top of my head, but there is an actual name for that. It's like heat something or glaze something. I forget.
Rule 1 of the Book of Wapple is what that is.
Yeah.
That's what that's called.
It's funny, actually, I learned the same thing, but not from him. Yeah.
Now, I feel, unless you're an art student or whatever, like if you just sat down day after day, put in 8 hours a day at your painting desk, it would take you a long time to figure out, you put a little purple and a little bit of green on top of some gold. That's almost gotta come as a hot tip from some random outside source.
I've made 5 or 6 videos about that exact thing. I'm just throwing that out there because if you do want to see what he's talking about.
Wapple.
Yeah. It's osmosis. I probably did too. I don't know. James Wapple is a nugget on his own, okay? Like, go find that.
Yeah, that's something you learned. Go watch James Wapple.
Yeah.
That's
oh,
right
man.
there.
Did I ever tell you? I don't think. Maybe I did. It's embarrassing. So I did a collab with James Wapple, and I didn't know it was actually like who he was.
Okay. How'd that work out?
I asked him if he wanted to do a thing. He did a thing, and it was a whole collaboration that we did. You were a part of it too, actually.
Sounds right. Yeah.
Yeah, but I didn't realize that's who that was. And he like followed through and did a whole thing and like made like a 3-hour video about it.
Some of his 3-hour videos are just a recording of his 3-hour stream, though.
Oh, yeah, it was.
Okay.
It was.
Yeah.
But I mean, he still talked about it. He's talked about like the whole point of it and why we were doing it. But it kind of like, like I was pretty new coming back to the hobby. Did not realize that was the James Wapple that is the James Wapple. You know what I mean? Just saying, it's kind of embarrassing, you know?
It's okay, Casey. I'm sure he forgives you.
He doesn't even, I certainly did tell him that.
You'll get your chance to apologize at some point. You're good for it.
I didn't do it last time at Adepticon. Maybe next year.
It'll be a Gen Con, I bet.
Probably.
All right.
Oh, man.
Okay. So I've got a slightly wandering on the same topic here, but some of the nuggets that you get are you learn that something you thought was going to be hard is actually easy. So a little while ago, you were talking about like, okay, this is possible. It might take some work, but here's the thing that's possible, kind of using these colors and these tools. And if I practice, I can get to this point. Or that is useful to know, useful to have a goal. But there are some things, watching a video, where something is way easier than you thought it was going to be. You're like, oh, yeah. Wait, I could just be doing this the whole time. As one example, like just if you got some big black eyes and you just like a tiny bit of a dot of white in each eye, just as like a little glint from a light source. That's all it is. Or I mean, you can go more complicated, but like
sure,
the easiest variant is just a little speck of white, and then kind of in the same part of the other eye, so that it's reflecting the same light source. It's just another little glint of light. You're talking about
glint
of white.
like lenses, right? Not eyes.
For lenses too, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm trying.
I was thinking big bug eyes or lenses. Yeah, either way.
Yeah, okay, big bug eyes. I'm trying to think of smaller, but anyways, yeah, my bad. Yes, you're right. I agree. There.
And so that's an example of something that sometimes an effect just looks so cool, and you can't even like begin to think like how they make that eye or that lens look so realistic. Like, oh, it's a dot of white right there,
like in the corner.
Yeah, there's a dot of white in the corner.
It's amazing what your brain fills in with such little information, right?
Right. And it's one of those things that you might have thought that was completely out of reach, and then you see someone do it and just real quick, boom, dot that in. Mm-hmm. It looks awesome now. Oh, okay. All right. I might have to try that someday. That didn't look too hard. All right.
Yeah.
And it kind of, along the same lines, going back to that video you just did with the army men's. When you were painting the vehicles, the walker and the tank, you were weathering the edges by just putting steel, like scrapes along the edges, basically.
Yeah, just a dirty edge highlight.
Yeah, just a dirty edge highlight with your steel color. And I think weathering really falls into this category of it can be very simple stuff. Like sponging on some brown and orange, putting a few random marks of silver along the edge of something to make it look like the edge scraped the paint off right there down to bare metal.
Yeah.
Very, very simple things that if you're looking at the model as a whole, if you're looking at a finished piece, you might be like, I have no idea how they did any of that. But some of it's simple tricks and tips and tricks, nuggets, simple nuggets.
All the same, all good things.
All them nuggets that you can get right down to. Yeah. Give it a shot tonight.
Well, yeah. Actually, that does remind me, like, doing scratches on armor. That's one of those things that seems like, man, that's like that's difficult. And then you realize, oh no, you just put a little white line under that darker scratch line and it looks three-dimensional because, again, your brain fills things in and it's like, oh, that was not as hard as I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, that's a great example.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that one. Great example, yeah. Make a scratch in the armor, his black line, and then like the highlight color for the armor just right alongside the black line. And there you go.
Yeah.
Right. You did it.
Yeah, that's a good one. I like that one. Yeah, that one actually took me I think because I just didn't want to ruin my model, so I just never tried it.
Yeah.
So like for a long time, I relied on like mistakes in like if I washed a model and like there was a splotch of like say gnome oil on some piece of armor, I'm like, oh no. Oh, but wait, I can just put some of that like lighter color underneath that weird splotch and all of a sudden like, holy crap. Yeah. Right. Yeah, but I it took me a while to like do it intentionally, right? To put the splotches or the lines or the whatever. And then, you practice that a little bit and all of a sudden you're like, oh, this is good. I can do this.
Yeah, the combination of either black or dark brown and whatever the highlight color of the model. Mm-hmm. Like, yeah, the highlight color of the armor plate is like the distressed paint around the chip, and then the black is the chipped off paint.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, just pairing highlight color right next to black makes it look like there was a paint chip there on the armor or whatnot. Boom.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things that easily conveyed in a YouTube video, and maybe the creator was nice and made a YouTube video about how to weather armor, or maybe they just happen to be weathering armor in some kind of unrelated video and you picked it up. But yeah, my experience has been that you actually can get a ton of useful nuggets that actually don't necessarily require skill. You just file them away as tools of something you might want to try someday. But yeah, you can get a lot of that stuff from YouTube videos. learning how to blend, that's harder. That's harder.
You're right. And I think, maybe it is the more difficult things, that like specific techniques of like knowing how much paint do I have on my brush, like what am I supposed to do? Like you can get the idea from it, but you really do have to just do it a lot.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that in a nutshell is really what I mean by no, you don't really learn how to paint better, but you kind of do. Like you pick things up and
you get some ideas of stuff.
You get
to try.
ideas. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think I'm agreeing with you without agreeing with you.
Okay.
Or we're agreeing to disagree to agree, or some such.
Yeah.
Yeah. Something like that.
I think it's good to have these videos on in the background, and every once in a while you'd be like, whoa, what just happened? Hold on. I can use that.
Yeah.
Or I might use that.
Right, right. And I do like that. I do like just picking up a few things and putting them in my back pocket. Like some time ago, long ago, I don't even know when, I watched some video on YouTube back before I even really started painting, and it stuck with me. A thing that I heard: crackle medium makes spider webs out of an airbrush. And I didn't own an airbrush. I didn't even know what the hell crackle medium was, but you know what? The other day I bought some crackle medium and I put that shit through my airbrush, and guess what it did? Made spider webs.
That's pretty cool.
It was cool. I was very excited. I ended up covering half my office in spider webs, but, whatever.
Did it require any skill on your part to make these spider webs?
I did have to, figure out where they were angling out of the airbrush. I wasn't quite sure because you couldn't really see them. And then, like some stuff over in the corner of my office was, covered in what looked like cobwebs, and... of course, my kid comes in, he's like, Daddy, there's spiders everywhere. Like, oh, no, I made those. I made those spider webs. Like, no, you didn't. No, you didn't. Those are real. It's like, no, I promise they're not real. Don't worry about it.
They do look real, don't they, son? They look real, though. Yeah, I scared the shit out of him. Thank you, son. That's the nicest thing you could have said.
Right. Oh, that's a wonderful compliment. Thank you. Yeah. But yeah, that's definitely one of those things I just picked up 5 or 6 years ago that I don't know, it just was there, incepted into my mind. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that. I think we have one other thing that is kind of important based on this topic, and that is learning the order of operations in how to actually paint something.
Yes.
That is a thing that you do actually learn, right? Now, it's different from different people, right? There's the Games Workshop way, and then there's the whoever else way, There's even the James Wapple way, which is no other way, right? There are people that do things in their own way, but you can learn the order of operations to paint a certain way. Like Games Workshop is 2 thin coats for everything. You base coat it, you wash it, you highlight back up. That's how you paint.
That's a good order right there.
An effective way to paint.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the only way to paint.
No. And a lot of this is just understanding what colors go under and over other colors. How to layer things up to get the effect that you want. For example, if you're trying to paint a bright orange over black, that's not going to work. You gotta paint that some other light color first. You paint that,
right?
Paint pale sand over that black. Then you go with the orange.
Yeah,
paint red brown
yeah.
over that black. Then go with the orange. Yeah.
The red brown. That's definitely a nugget for sure. Red brown primer, right?
Yeah.
We've talked about this before.
That would be an acceptable name for a YouTube video. Best primer colors, or red brown is the best primer color. But otherwise, that just might be something you randomly pick up. He didn't prime with black. What's this guy priming with red brown for? Oh, wow. That is a useful undercoat for flesh, rusty metal, warm colors, mud, leather. I could keep going. I'm slowing down, but I could keep going.
You're like, I gotta think for a sec, but I could. For other things that are close to reddish, not black colors. No, that's the red brown is definitely a good way to go. It does keep, like, you're not painting over black, essentially. That's what that is.
Right.
So you can get less coats of lighter colors that just look better.
Yeah,
it makes sense.
And not saying that the paint recipe is necessarily what you get from a painting video, but the general order or the way to approach a project,
right.
That's the sort of stuff that does sink in and is useful information.
Mm-hmm. So with all that, where do you land on the actual question, the specific question of, does watching YouTube mini painters actually make you a better painter?
I think yes, and part of that is just the way I paint is not reliant on freehand painting, making smooth blends. Like, a lot of the way I paint is sort of paint by numbers. Let's try this trick, this color combo.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of those things are just ideas that actually can be transferred very easily.
Okay.
Even in a podcast, but especially on video. And yeah, I think a lot of my painting skill, in quotation marks, is just I've acquired a decent number of fun tips and tricks that I like to try. I don't know. Huh?
Okay. I mean, that makes sense. I think I'm still falling on the not technically scale, but like,
okay, you keep trying to figure out how to do your non-metallic metals over there. I'll be over here knowing that Vallejo metal color is the best true metallic metal,
which is what I use. Okay, in fact, I think I told you to go buy that. Which
is an example of the difference we're talking about here. Like, if you want to learn how to paint non-metallic metal, you get a couple of little nuggets from online videos.
Yeah, and
then you just got to put in the time.
No, I mean, in videos that are even like, oh, I showed you this in 1:1 speed for an hour and a half. It's like, yeah, but where did you decide to put those colors? Right. Like, why did you decide that? It's like the basic, I should be answering. This is not always answered, right? It is I see the colors you're using. I see the brush techniques you're using.
Mm-hmm.
Now I need to try that and put it into action and do it over and over again until I understand why this is looking the way it is.
Right.
Or if you have feedback,
Some of those things can be taught. Like, here's a cylinder. The way light plays on a cylinder is it kind of makes, a stripe down the cylinder.
But that nugget right there is what led me to, I suppose, learning how to do some of that stuff in general, how to highlight certain things, was look at this like this instead of thinking about it as metal or whatever else it is. These are just shapes that are painted in a certain way, right?
Yeah, but even then, here, make this part of the cylinder shiny and this part of the cylinder dark. You're on your own. Good luck. Have fun.
Yeah. Oh man.
Here's your expensive brush. There's a selection of expensive paints. Have fun making that shiny. You know where the shininess needs to go. Go for it. Do it. Yeah. Mm-hmm. That doesn't transfer so good over the YouTube videos.
Right.
You can try, but you got to do it.
I mean, I think the most I've ever learned in one session of painting has been when somebody was in front of me showing me and then helping me along, taking an actual class. It was like, oh, I literally see how you're doing this as you're explaining it and then repeating it, and then I'm doing it and they're telling me, oh no, you need to angle it up here, or you need to place this here. It's like, oh, that makes sense. Yeah. I see why you would want to do those things, you know?
I will set my airbrush to 30 psi. I'll dial that in on the regulator, and I will put Vallejo metal color steel into my airbrush.
That is a valid option.
but yeah, having the knowledge of different ways to accomplish similar results or like acceptable results, even, you know. Mm-hmm. I don't want the non-metallic metal fans to be like, that is not the same. But, you know, ways to paint something that kind of looks like metal, like there's different ways to do it. And some ways are more technique heavy or more practice heavy, require more experience. Mm-hmm. And some options really are just like, yeah, here, put some silver on there.
Right.
Don't thin your paints a little bit, not too much. So there's still a little bit of
but how
of
much
knowledge
do
there,
I
experience.
Yeah. Just because we're talking about non-metallic metal, I'm gonna throw out a good nugget, right?
Okay.
So whenever I paint actual true metallics, you know, the James Wapple thing comes in. Like if you're painting gold, you get your greens and your purples in there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's always good to do. If I'm painting like silver, then I try and get like the dark blacks, the outlines. But then I'll take the brightest highlight silver that I have, and I will try and paint in the same way that you would paint non-metallic metal. So yeah, if it's a cylinder, I'm gonna like, you know, paint it like a cylinder should be painted. And if it's an orb, I'm gonna paint it like an orb should be painted. And all these shapes that have like specific reflection types. And that way I have the real metallics, but they look a little more intentional. And it's practice every time you do it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And I do think that has helped.
That's some good advice. I like that.
Yeah.
I do that too sometimes. Yeah.
Good way to go without having to
highlight your metals, paint metals, then highlight your metals. Yeah, makes sense. Seems good.
Yeah. I did have one more actual thing, and I'm scrolling to find it and trying to cover for that. All right. I suppose this is mostly related, but I guess I'm just calling people out in general. But are mini painting YouTubers an actual representation of the hobby, or is it exaggerated?
What do you mean by that question?
So most normal hobbyists, like they don't paint every day, right? People don't generally paint every day, and it's on and it's off, and the amount of products you get, the amount of models you get, I think people get a sense that I'm watching this person, they paint and they're doing their hobby and it looks like this, right? Like the desk behind me, the paint racks behind you are normal. And I'm just saying like that's not normal. Like, don't let that be normal. Whatever you have in your hobby room, in your hobby space, and the amount of models you have is more than adequate. I just want to throw that out there because I think that oftentimes we kind of misrepresent the hobby in general and show like the extreme side of it, of like the extreme hoarding and piles of shame and like all of these things that aren't necessarily true. You know what I mean?
I think there's a lot of people like us out there.
I do think there are.
A lot of people with piles.
Yeah.
No, I absolutely hear you. And we've talked before, hey, a level 1 hobby desk is still a hobby desk, and we're glad you're getting some paint on models, and that's awesome.
That's all I wanted to say. Yeah.
Man, I think there's a deeper philosophical question here, Casey.
Probably, yeah.
I think it is true that people have bought those little drawers behind you because you have put them in videos.
Probably.
And because you are on the internet making videos causes people to be more like you.
Yeah. Only do that if you're going to make your tank look like this. Just to piss everyone off. I want to see that.
For real, though, there's going to be at least somebody who's making a mechanized army who's going to have all of their tanks backwards. And they're going to be a little smarter about it. They're going to chop off their exhaust and they're going to put it on the front, now back of their tanks. And
I could
they'll find a way. They'll figure it out.
I could.
They'll make it happen.
Maybe that's what I should have done. I should have literally gone in, snipped off the exhaust and like the engine block and literally just glued them on the other side and been like, I fixed it, guys. I took care of it.
Yeah. So this is really a whole other podcast if we ever want to do that. Yeah. But the existence of people putting videos on the internet, I think somewhat standardizes what this hobby is.
Yeah.
And, inks were all the rage, and oil paints were all the rage. And man, I think we're getting into the era of golden high flow acrylics, like there's golden, there are definitely general, fads that propagate through the hobby community because of people like you, Casey. And
yeah, that's true. I mean, I'm way more of a shill than you are.
It comes in phases. It comes in cycles.
Brent over here doesn't do ad spots.
Your Army Painter speed paints yet? Though, but having fun with those,
that's a negative. No, I did in the last video, and the teals that I'm doing on the Tomb Kings model are Army Painter air paints. So
very nice.
Yes, there is a section in that, but. While the video is sponsored by NordVPN, and I did get paid for that, the Army Painter section is not, and I do show those paints. And I talk about them, and I say, these are good.
Cool. Man, every day I do a YouTube search for WizKids frameworks.
Right, yeah.
Every day there's no new results. I'm the only person who's ever painted those kobolds.
The first and last person to ever paint $55 kobolds.
I do think Den of Imagination, who did the sculpting for a lot of those models, did paint the kobolds. So
I mean, if you're sculpting,
I'm not literally the only person. I might be the only person who didn't also sculpt the models who painted them. Yeah. But
actually, I don't think I told you this. I was looking on eBay for Frameworks models, and there are some that people have painted. I didn't see kobolds, no. But I have seen them, and they are for sale. Like, oh, I don't want these anymore. They're used. And I've been like, this close, man. This close.
Do it.
I know. Do it. Just painting some frameworks.
Do it. Yeah.
I'll get there. It's still on my list, I got a long list right now. I got a real big list.
Okay. So back when I used to have a job to go to or school or whatever, I would try to remember the day after the Super Bowl, like the morning of the day after the Super Bowl, to look up the scores so that I knew who played in the Super Bowl the day before.
Right. So you could be like, how about
I did that so that, I could go to work and I could be semi-social and at least not embarrass myself at the old water cooler talk,
Yeah.
And I think there is a version of that in the mini painting community. Like, part of what you learn from watching YouTube videos is you see where the fads are at.
Yeah.
You'd be like, all right, man.
You gotta zenithal and slap chop those models.
Yeah, you gotta know the word zenithal. Like, if you show up to the water cooler at Adepticon and you don't know the word zenithal, if you don't know the word slap chop, what are you doing?
Somebody rolls up like, so I see you primed that model black. Did you use zenithal on that? Yeah. Zenithal?
Now, it's not going to make you a better painter. Well, slap chop will make you an amazing painter, but
real fast too.
Simply knowing the word slap chop will not make you a better painter.
No, not a little. No.
But you need to know it, because you're going to look like a dang fool if you show up at a social gathering and everybody's talking about stuff and you don't know that the Bruins played the Browns in the Super Bowl yesterday.
Oh my God.
Right?
Oh yeah. Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they're both okay. I'm not even. This guy.
Yeah, the Lakers are going to win this year.
The Lakers are going to win the Super Bowl this year.
But yeah, no, there is that effect, man. You know, you meet a stranger for the first time, and you meet a stranger. You can talk about the weather. Okay,
sure. Yeah, that's appropriate.
Maybe you can talk about the food truck that you can both see from where you're standing.
Mm-hmm.
You move on from that. You can talk about other things that you might have in common, like, hey, you see that new Star Wars movie?
Okay.
Did you see those Grogu stories? You know?
So yeah. Did you watch that?
But
new
if
Marvel
you're hanging
movie
out with
and Brent
nerds,
says no.
Yeah, you're hanging out with nerds. You're looking for things you can talk about. Like, hey, did you see that Tau Manta diorama? You know? Did you see?
Which one? The on tabletop one or the Squidward one?
No, we do not do this. We do not do this. Yeah. Okay. I have it on good authority that Squidmar does not watch these, but people will tell him, so...
What are you talking... Yeah, that's fine. What are you talking about? Say that to us. What?
But no, there is a little bit of a hive mind. There is a little bit of a mini painting community, which is a solitary event for the most part, but the interconnectedness, a lot of the interconnectedness that is there to some degree is through social media, and a part of that is YouTube. And so, yeah, if you want to be involved in kind of the larger community, like be aware that folks are getting into golden acrylic paints, you know? Be aware that slap chop is awesome. I don't know.
It's viable, yeah.
Have these things in the back of your mind. Not going to help you paint, but going to help you maybe continue your end of a conversation if you meet up with some nerds at the game store. Yeah.
That's true. I mean, if you roll up to your local G-dubs and you're like talking slap chop, I mean...
Yeah. If somebody says slap chop and everybody else in the room is laughing and you're just standing there like an idiot, like not knowing what's going on, and then you just kind of laugh to be like everyone else, slap chop. But you don't really get it. And everyone can tell that you don't really get it. Someone's listening to this right now that doesn't know what slap chop is.
You know what? I'm just going to say it. That's okay. It's fine. It's fine. Oh my God.
Well, on that note.
Yeah, this has devolved quickly. Thank you again for joining us on another episode of Paint Bravely. If you enjoyed this podcast, please help us out by leaving us a review on iTunes, subscribing to the YouTube channel, and sharing this message with your hobby friends. And as always, we appreciate each and every one of you for listening, and we will talk to you next time.
Talk to you next time.